48 hours after an Israeli airstrike destroyed the Hezbollah headquarters. Another 20 Hezbollah operatives and at least one senior IRGC general were killed in the strike, capping a catastrophic 11 days for the Lebanese group and its backers in Tehran. Our Middle East correspondent Ariel Osseran has the latest.
2 days after Israel eliminated him in a massive airstrike on Hezbollah's underground Beirut headquarters, the body of Hassan Nasrallah was retrieved on Sunday. Reuters reported the body had no direct wounds, with the cause of death being blunt trauma from the force of the blast.
The elimination of Nasrallah is a necessary condition in achieving the objectives we set, returning the residents of the north safely to their homes and changing the balance of power in the region for years to come. As long as Nasrallah was alive, he would have quickly rebuilt the capabilities we took from Hezbollah. Therefore, I gave the order, and Nasrallah is no longer with us.
More than 20 additional terrorists were eliminated alongside Nasrallah, the IDF said, including the IRGC's deputy commander, Abbas Nilfaroushan.
America is a partner in this crime and cannot separate itself from this reality in any way. The blood of the martyrs of this incident will certainly not go unanswered, and we will definitely stand by Lebanon.
The fate of Hezbollah's executive council head and expected successor to Nasrallah, Hashem Safiaddin, remains unknown. He is believed to have also attended the meeting in which Nasrallah and Hezbollah's highest-ranking military commander, Ali Karki, were killed. Safiaddin's deputy, Nabil Kaouk, was eliminated in another Israeli airstrike on Hezbollah's Beirut Dakhia stronghold on Saturday, one of more than 80 strikes on the Lebanese capital since Friday. Lebanon's health ministry said more than 1,000 people were killed and 6,000 injured as a result of Israeli strikes in less than 2 weeks in Lebanon.
Head to the north of Israel, because despite the killing of almost all of its senior leadership, Hezbollah is still able to fire some rockets at Israel. There were some 30 rockets fired at the Upper Galilee region today, including the towns of Rosh Pina and Sfat, where we now find our correspondent Zach Anderson. Zach, just give us an update on Hezbollah's response so far.
Yeah, you pointed out the number of rockets fired. We had an earlier, or rather a recent update from the IDF in the last hour. 35 rockets from Lebanon, the IDF tells me, and approximately 25 of those were heading into the Haifa Bay, into the Haifa metro area, and into Akko, just north of Haifa. What we have seen throughout the day today is Hezbollah is back on their normal messaging. They're posting that they've claimed responsibility for 5 attacks.
Terrorist who was eliminated in that strike on Friday night. Well, he was born to a poor vegetable seller in Beirut, and he rose to lead the world's best-funded and best-armed terrorist organisation. He spent exactly half his life as the head of Hezbollah. On Friday night, he was killed in a massive Israeli airstrike. Our Emma Siegel has more.
The IDF has confirmed that Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah was killed in a Beirut airstrike on September 27th, eliminating the 64-year-old terror chief. The terror organization Hezbollah was formed in 1982. It emerged in response to Israel's invasion into southern Lebanon, whose goal was to put the northern Israeli communities out of reach from Palestinian terror cells in Lebanon. Nasrallah rallied a group of fighters against the IDF ground forces. The 3 months of fighting became known as the First Lebanon War. 10 years later, in 1992, Nasrallah was appointed Secretary General of Hezbollah at just 32 years old. He was chosen after the former leader, Sayed Abbas Massawi, was killed in an IDF strike. While many hoped that Hezbollah might end with Massawi, Nasrallah turned Hezbollah into one of the most powerful non-state military forces in the world. He ordered rocket attacks into northern Israel that killed one, orchestrated a car bomb attack that killed an Israeli official at the Israeli embassy in Turkey, and ordered a suicide bombing at the Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires, Argentina.
From Russia to Turkey to Iran, there has been stern condemnation of Israel's killing of Nasrallah, but in parts of Lebanon, Syria and Iran, there were scenes of celebration. More in this report.
While the international community widely condemned Israel for the airstrikes in Beirut that killed Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, victims of his terror activities throughout the Middle East celebrated. Even before Nasrallah's death was confirmed, Syrians in areas outside of government control took to the streets, cheering, handing out sweets, and honking car horns.
الكافر الظالم الطاغية حسن زميرة حسن نصر الله
Under Nasrallah's leadership, Hezbollah fought against Assad regime opponents during the Syrian civil war, causing heavy losses and forcing tens of thousands to flee. Even in Lebanon, where people fear persecution by Hezbollah, many did not shed a tear over Nasrallah's demise. In Lebanon's second largest city, Tripoli, crowds took to the streets to express their joy.
Well, Iran has vowed to take revenge on Israel for the killing of a top Revolutionary Guard general. Abbas Niforoshian died in the airstrike on Beirut. Iran's policy of using its proxies to attack Israel from Lebanon, Iraq and Yemen is looking increasingly exposed after the massive degradation of Hezbollah. More in this report.
2 days after Israel's targeted killing of Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah, Iran is vowing revenge. Iran's supreme leader released an official statement after the death of Nasrallah was confirmed.
He was martyred while he was engaged in planning to defend the homeless people living in the Beirut suburbs and their destroyed houses and their deceased loved ones, just as he had been planning and fighting for decades to defend the oppressed people of Palestine and the usurped towns and villages and destroyed houses and their massacred loved ones. The strikes of the resistance front on the worn-out and decaying body of the Zionist regime will be even more powerful.
Hezbollah is one of Iran's many proxies, heavily armed militias around the Middle East named by Iran as, quote, the axis of resistance. And Iran is not the only entity seeking vengeance. The Houthis in Yemen have been wreaking havoc in the region in a show of support for Palestinians in Gaza as the Israel-Hamas war rages on. A Houthi spokesperson expressed their solidarity with Hezbollah after Nasrallah's death.
We feel we have lost a leader who was one of us. He stood with Yemen and represented the leader of the entire Ummah. But he paid a price for this great journey. We in Yemen will stand alongside Hezbollah. Our weapons will be with Hezbollah. Our missiles will be with Hezbollah. All our military capabilities and all our fighters will be alongside Hezbollah. And from today, even more than before,
this Houthi solidarity culminated with a missile launched from Yemen towards Tel Aviv on Saturday, sending more than 1 million running to shelters as the missile was intercepted. And now massive Israeli airstrikes have rocked Yemen's port city Hodeida. Tensions continue to boil over in the Middle East as the region braces to see what the retaliation for Nasrallah's death will be and where it will come from.
And this afternoon, Israel carried out strikes on the Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen for a second time. They hit power plants and the main port of Hodeida. Israel last hit the port in July. This latest strike comes 24 hours after the Houthis fired a missile at Tel Aviv. Well, joining me now, Jason Brodsky is the policy director of the group United Against a Nuclear Iran. Great to see you, Jason. A second strike on Hodeida in Yemen. Are these strikes having any impacts on this Iranian proxy at all?
Great to be with you, Laura. I think that Israel is aiming at targets of much more consequence than the United States has in Yemen. It's aiming at critical infrastructure, whereas the United States has been acting as an arrow, missile and drone catcher for the Houthis and targeting the arrows as opposed to the archers of those arrows. And so you see Israel escalating its response, not just against critical infrastructure, but also a widening array of targets. And that's the message that Israel is sending to the Houthis. It has the ability to escalate beyond their capability and it has escalation dominance.